invite our panelists to come and take their seats. Abdul Wahab, Adele, why don't you come up and take your seats? The next session is called Getting the Next 1 Billion Passengers in the Sky. What do commercial airlines and the OEMs need to do? For those of you perhaps who follow CNN and the work that we do here in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, we often say on the air, we're at the crossroads of East and West. I think we also might need to be suggesting that we're at the crossroads of the North and South because of the traffic flows that we see today in 2016. In my first visit to the country in 1990, this was an area of the world that was bypassed entirely, going from Asia to Europe and then beyond to America. The dynamics have changed radically, and that's going to be right at the heart of our conversation. This is going to be chaired by a very familiar face in the aviation and aerospace sector, Abdul Wahab Tafaha, the Secretary General of the Arab Air Carriers Organization. We have 45 minutes for discussion. As he knows, the floor will be open and we have microphones in the audience if you want to engage. Again, we have some people sitting up very high. Come on down so you can have a better line of sight to an expert panel which Abdul Wahab will introduce for us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Now it's fine. By the way, if you know somebody who's still outside or who want to have a nap, they can come here and have a nap here. I mean, it's actually nicer than outside. It's really daunting to have this kind of panel. 3 CEOs of airlines, 1 chief operating officer of probably one of the biggest projects in the Arab world of development of airports. So what I will do is to try to pick the brain of each of them to see how are we heading into the next 1 billion passengers. Now, if actually I want to apply the same growth percentage of Fly Dubai, which is last year it was 25%, right?
30%.
So it will be the next 1 billion will be next year, right? But unfortunately for the other members of the airline family, the growth rate is not 25%. So Ghaith is doing something, I'm sure, is splendid, as Adil, as Roy. I'm sure you know all of them, and Ahmad, who's in charge of the Abu Dhabi airports as Chief Operating Officer. My first question will be, and I would be more of an inquisitor than a moderator, if you allow me. So I will actually be a little bit hostile, if you allow me. Number one, because it's immediately after lunch, and people feel too relaxed after lunch, and we need to excite things up. Number two, because I think the best way to pick up knowledge is to try to be a little bit aggressive. So let me start with Ghaith.
Yes.
Ghaith, you introduced business class to Fly Dubai. You have entertainment system throughout the cabin or cabins. Are you competing with Emirates?
I mean, we are trying to fulfill what we believe is the potential that is there in the market. And if we have to start explaining that, we take it first from the top. We've been blessed as being the national carrier of the United Arab Emirates, and the Dubai name holds a lot of value, a lot of responsibility. Hence why we had to innovate, but innovate in a way that we will be able to ensure that we are cost effective as a low-cost airline. So for that reason, when we introduced the entertainment system, it was actually making money for us. You know, we cover the cost and we contribute a little bit of our money because passengers actually pay for it. We were very fortunate to have launched Omexis at the same time that the airline, and it was the system that was the lightest in the industry, and it was all fiber optics, and it was also very cheap compared, almost half of the price. So for us, it was good to do that. With the business class, it's the same thing. You know, we fly out of Dubai, and again, Dubai and the United Arab Emirates is known for a lot of potential for business class. We go to 59 routes out of our 90 almost that Emirates doesn't fly to. So we have a lot of demand for business class. So we saw that, and then we knew that we had the real estate to build a business class and introduce it because the market needs it. Now, that is what we see as an opportunity. Then it's up to the consumer to decide what fits their requirement. Will they fly with me, with Adil, with Air Aviation, with Emirates, with British Airways? And then we leave the customer to decide.
All right. Adil, why don't you have entertainment system on Air Arabia?
Our cabin crew are so good, they entertain them.
So you're in it for the transportation.
No, I think, as Ghaith probably said, you know, everybody does it for different reasons. For us, I think we don't have a seat back entertainment, but we do have an entertainment. I think we find that you do in the airline business quite a lot of research and talk to your customers. And we find that what matters to at least the people that we carry is new airplane, on time, good service, and so long as you can offer them, and a good price of course. And if you can offer them those three, they tend to come with you. And when you have an 82, 83% seat factor, and it continued for 12 years, then our philosophy is, if it's if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Fair enough. Okay, 1 billion passenger, more than the 3.8 billion of last year. I don't think this is too long a shot. It's not far-fetched. Because if we look at the growth of the airline, we're going to be there in any case by 2020 at the latest. But if this is the opportunity, and we want to do SWOT analysis, so that's the opportunity. What is the biggest challenge, in your opinion, Roy, to achieve that opportunity?
Okay, talking from an airline perspective, Abdul, if you look at it, most airlines who build around connecting hubs or connecting traffic flows tend to have banks of flights flowing and waving around the same time. That in itself, as we put more flights in the air, will lead to congestion of the air. That then leads to a problem for airlines. Do they get more frequency? Do they get more flights? Or do they actually go down the road of putting larger aircraft and using the same slots, same number of frequency to transport more guests? So I think as we see more airlines moving towards greater capacity and bigger aircraft, that is going to bring a stress and strain on many airports, and that leads to the word infrastructure. So I would see a challenge out there as airlines strive to fly more passengers around the world and between points. How does the infrastructure at the various airports keep pace with that so that it actually allows guests and passengers to flow freely and smoothly and as efficiently as possible in a timely manner through an airport? That gets right from number of check-in desks, size of waiting halls, through immigration queues, etc. So that's one challenge that I see out there. How will the infrastructure at airports keep pace with the supply of larger aircraft into the networks? Secondly, we can't get away from the word security. Security is here, it's going to be here to stay for the foreseeable future. So as the increased focus on security at airports is maintained, we start flying more guests and passengers through airports. How does the security processes and infrastructure at airports keep pace with that in an acceptable fashion? Those are what I would see as two of the main challenges out there.
So first challenge is infrastructure. So he threw the hot potato into your lap, Ahmed. Infrastructure. Now there are two facets. One is airports. You can, of course, that's your baby. But then your eldest child was not airports, actually was everything. Was inclusive of airports and air traffic management. But let's start with the airports. I remember last time we were here in Abu Dhabi at the Aerospace, Global Aerospace Summit. The gentleman who used to head the Abu Dhabi development company said, and he took an oath, saying on the 7th, at 7 a.m., on the 7th of July 2017, the airport will be open. All right? Will it be open on the 7th of July? Maybe not 7 o'clock in the morning, too early. How about 10?
First of all, congratulations for the additional 1 billion. I think it's not only the airport, but if you allow me, before I answer your questions, from an airport point of view, we look at the challenges is in the airspace, in the flexible use of the airspace.
We're coming to that. Wait a minute.
We'll come to that.
Don't run away
Fine.
from the question.
We are, as promised, it will be open in 2017, and the date would be December 2017 now. As far as construction is concerned, and that was, it will be finished well before July 2017. So from an airport point of view, the new midfield terminal will be opened well before July in terms of infrastructure. But in terms of operation, we need to discuss it with the airlines. We need to discuss with our national carrier. So there are other things need to be looked at from operation point of view. However, hopefully we will be able to meet that target date, which is toward the end of 2017.
Well, that's great. And by the way, let me put here a point of in the context of building airports. The UK government, parliamentarians, groups, lobbyists, everybody have been talking about the third runway for how many years? 25 years?
Yeah.
So, and still, the third runway is still in the phase of talk. No decision has yet been made. What is good here is, in this part of the world, is that when the plan is there, when they see the need for an expansion of the airport or the infrastructure is there, then they will do it. They will simply do it. Now, why didn't it happen in the air traffic management? I think one of the major challenges that everybody agreed on is the issue of the air traffic management. Why did we let it reach the stage of crisis and we still don't see a resolution for that crisis in the future, unless I'm mistaken?
Is that question to me?
Yes.
And as you are aware, Doctor, that from an UAE point of view, we are well ahead than the game when it comes to the designing the lower airspace and the upper airspace. In that, we need to work with our neighboring countries. So ICAO, in my opinion, plays a major role into basically narrowing these gaps. From a UAE point of view, and particularly from Abu Dhabi Airport, from Dubai Airport, from the General Civil Aviation Authority, and also Sharjah Airport, we are well ahead than the game. We have already finished our lower airspace. We are now in the integration of the upper airspace. But again, we cannot do it alone. We need the neighboring country to basically open more entry and exit points. Unless this is really happening, we will have challenges in our airspace, and maybe we'll have challenges in our airport where aircraft are going to basically stay for more than basically expected. So the GCA of UAE is taking the lead into basically redesigning the airspace, which we have done it. We started 2-3 years ago. Now we are in the final stages of basically moving forward with the implementation. However, the neighboring country, the neighboring flight information region, they have to do their part too.
What does it take, Busaid?
No, first of all, I will concur, and I will want to correct what you said. It's not a crisis in the United Arab Emirates.
Sorry?
It's not a crisis. You said we reached a crisis
Yes.
situation. It is not. Alhamdulillah, we have a good family of aviation, as my colleagues just mentioned. Both the Emirates, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, and all are working together with the GCA, and then they have already designed and will be implementing a solution that will take care of us. As far as the United Arab Emirates is concerned, no issue. The challenge is that the next level, because you cannot just solve your own problem like you have in Europe. You have a Euro control. I think the challenge will be for us. What do we do after that? Because you will run out of space. You can only solve so much, and I think that's what.
Sorry. In my opinion, a crisis when the solution for the region is not there.
Absolutely.
And I totally agree with you. The development of airspace, air traffic management in the UAE is quite advanced. In Saudi Arabia, it is more and more advanced. In Bahrain, it's advanced. The problem is, how do you combine all the traffic flow management units that exist, at least, I'm talking about the GCC now, how do you combine them in order to solve that? And I still repeat that it's not a crisis now, but it is heading towards becoming a crisis whereby it's not only identified by airlines, by ACU, by IATA. So even the global aviation industry is looking at it as something urgent that needs to be addressed. So now the second challenge in the infrastructure is how to get different players or different governments sit together in order to make something work rather than moving the bottleneck from one place to the other.
Well, again, I think we in the GCC, we definitely have to achieve that. We need to work together, and I am not an expert in that part of the world, and I have not heard that there have been GCC at level coordination. At least I have not heard. That is definitely needed, and then of course we need to work with the other agencies in the world, like ACOs and IATA, to ensure that there is a permanent solution. Because of course the space is limited. I mean, we can see the traffic on the roads here, for example, wherever city you are from. But a lot of people don't realize how busy it is also on the skies.
Quite busy. Try.
I may add one point with respect to the coordination. Our regulator, the General Civil, of course, the GCA, is working very hard with the neighboring countries to basically move forward with more entry and exit points. And the GCA, being the government agency for air navigation in the UAE, they are working closely with the neighboring FIR to basically open more exit and entry points. Again, there is an infrastructure need to be developed in some of the neighboring countries, and I think they are working on it. And hopefully, within the next few years, things will basically improve from an airport point of view. All airports in UAE, along with national carriers, all of them are working very, very, very hard to basically make sure this will not be a challenge in the future.
All right. So first challenge for that opportunity is infrastructure. From all angles, at all levels, be that national or regional, development of airports and air traffic management. Adil, what do you put in your, how do you view not the second biggest challenge, but a parallel challenge to be able to get that opportunity, which is another 1 billion passenger for the world?
I guess two things that come to mind quickly. One would be, and that gives me a cause for concern even now, is the airport charges. And this is charges directly to the customers, not to the airlines. I think airports generally in Europe started this some time back, and now it's coming very close home regionally, where the passenger pays, if not more than the airfare, higher than the airfare, airport services and airport taxes and all that sort of thing. So airfare is no longer the expensive part. In fact, airfare is, in quite a lot of occasions now, cheaper than a taxi between Abu Dhabi and Dubai. But the airport service charges are now becoming much higher than airfares. And that's one where I think people will be questioning, is it worth paying and traveling?
I think, Ahmed, if you knew how many issues will be thrown to your lap, I think you would have second thought.
Yeah, but generally it's becoming, it's an easy thing to write to airline.
Do you overcharge, Ahmed?
I have to be, I'm surrounded by airlines, so I have to be very careful.
Yes.
Say yes.
And
Without the airline, you will not have an airport.
See, the infrastructure of airports also must meet the regulatory requirements. The regulatory requirements have changed from, and they do change years over years. The infrastructure must also meet the regulatory aspects. So if we look at some airports, they do look after the ATC, such as Abu Dhabi Airport and also Dubai Airport. So they are charges that are not part of the airport. Who's going to pay who's going to pay these basically charges, which is really represent maybe 30 to 40% of the revenue of the airports. If you look at the demand of the airlines that need to be met, who's going to build the infrastructure? The airport must basically build those infrastructure.
Okay,
So-
let me change a little bit my question. Not overcharge. The airport charges, do they come back to develop the infrastructure, or are they somewhere in the finance ministry and then money is allocated to the airport?
The airport charges are well invested. The airport revenues,
Yes.
those charges are well invested in the development of the airport. And those charges, if we are really talking about the landing charges, the aeronautical charges, they don't really pay off the actual investment that the airport is basically making. So, and we are in the UAE, we are less than 20% less than basically the industry. So we are really below the industrial standard if we compare with many airports in Europe or basically in the region.
Actually, you are accused in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, in Sharjah, and many other airports in the region that they are actually selling it cheap, which means that you are helping the airlines somehow to become more competitive. So I agree with you that the charges in the region are lower than elsewhere, but I think what Adel was mentioning is the issue of taxation in general. Not only the airport charges, but also taxes on passengers. There are many airports in the Arab world which charge, ridiculous amounts of money as passenger taxes. But let me move to another issue. So now we have infrastructure and taxation. Roy, probably more into your previous experience in Etihad rather than your new. I'm coming to your new experience in Air Seychelles. What do you think? I mean, let me put it straightforward. To reach 1 billion more, or maybe more. 1 billion, I think, is too humble an objective for for the airline industry. What do you need as an airline? And where do you need it?
I think that comes back to basics out there. There needs to be, demand first of all. So the first question is there the demand for that? If not, how do we stimulate it and create it? And secondly, where is that demand? Is it equally spread geographically across the world? Is it focused in on one or two hotspots, and is really only going to be travel within those? Is the makeup of air travel in the future, given the state of the economy around the world in certain parts, is that going to be geared more towards long-haul international, or is that going to change people's travel patterns to become
Can you
more
operate
short-haul?
wherever there is demand?
Sorry?
Can you operate wherever there is demand? Not as Air Seychelles, but as an airline expert. Can airlines operate wherever there is demand?
No, obviously there needs to be a series of checklists worked through on that, Abdul. First of all, A, do you have the equipment? B, you then get into the regulatory side of it in terms of have you got the necessary approvals, not just as an airline, but between countries to fly between there? Have you got the necessary traffic rights to sell between the points you want to? So there's quite a lot of checklists to actually go through, rather than just saying, I want to open and start selling.
All right.
And also, if I can actually add to that then, whilst the desire and the wish may be there, I think it was touched on by several of my colleagues earlier, how do you get groups of countries and people together to actually agree it's the right thing to avoid it moving down a protectionist nature?
You touched on probably the point I was leading to. Guys,
The
protectionism.
single most challenge to the airline industry is open skies.
Is?
Open skies. Open skies.
Yes.
That is the biggest problem, I think. And I think you can create demand, you can encourage people to travel, you can innovate and try to find ways to reduce cost. But the biggest challenge is open sky, because I think the airline
Or the lack of it.
Huh?
Or the lack.
Or the lack of it, of course.
Yes.
That's what I mean. Is that because in the airline industry, you are still, now we are in the 21st centuries, and then there are certain countries, and not counting the number of flights, they count the seats. If you want to have a bigger aircraft to drive efficiency through slots and all of that, you cannot, because you are limited with seats. And even if you said, I wanted to fly the aircraft half empty, no problem, say, no, you cannot. So changing the rules around, flying around the world, I believe as long as you are safe and secure, people should fly wherever they want to be, because they tick certain boxes rather than all of this closing the...
So you don't agree with the gentleman, the CEO of Garuda, who said early on in the previous panel that airlines need protection?
No. Look, when a government decide that they wanted to look after their airline, I don't mind that, because there is a national interest there. But it has to be prorated, and it has to be given certain times. But eventually you have to open, because once you protect an airline and then you give them that comfort zone that they can be this and then they can be that, they will never evolve. And that's why protecting an airline or closing that is really not good for our business, especially if you are trying to create more capacity or create more people to travel. So if you want to reach a billion or a two with closed airport or with closed skies, if that's the right word, you will never get there. You have to allow people to flow wherever they want to go, let people create and work and influence people to fly. And I believe, there is a natural demand for people to travel. I mean, everybody around us here, when we were growing up, anybody who traveled once It's like, wow, they are somebody. Now people travel every week, every month, because we are one village.
Let me ask the audience a question. I don't see many old people like me, but if somebody has traveled before 1980, has anyone traveled before 1980 using the airplane? All right. I ask you gentlemen there, when you traveled, did you know before 1980, anywhere in the world, did you know that the prices were actually agreed upon between the airlines operating on the same route? Did you know that the meal you were getting actually was, the airline was not allowed to go beyond that meal? Did you know that the seat pitch between your seat and the one next to you or in front of you was not, the airline was not allowed to go beyond a certain pitch? Did you all know all of that?
Good afternoon, my name is Shamsu Anjorin. My first flight was in 73. And at that time, I knew that there was some agreement between the industry on slots, price, yes.
Everything, meal, you knew that.
Yes.
And if you want to compare the price you paid then, given the inflation, with the price you can pay today on the same route under a competitive environment, what do you say? Which one was more expensive?
Actually, the price has dropped in relative value. The price has dropped.
In relative value. So now you pay less for the same flight
I think so.
you took, almost 40 years ago. Thank you very much, sir. If there are other questions from the audience, please. So, protectionism, all right?
Yeah.
Lack of providing airlines with free market access is a challenge and a threat.
Biggest challenge.
All right. Adil, you're facing protectionism every day, right? You have, Adil Ali is one of these people who decided that I don't have enough headache on my mind, so I will create more headaches. So I don't have one airline to handle, I will have more airlines to handle everywhere. So since now you have those headaches on daily basis, in many of the Arab countries, how do you rate protectionism in terms of the threats or challenges to get the next billion passenger?
Thank you. I guess, it's Ray touched upon it, and there's a confusion between aviation, airline business is a business, a commercial enterprise, or a regulator that protected and you're not allowed to do what you want. Now, when you look at the plot of the world that they opened it up, Europe is a classic example. Look at the amount of flights and the people that fly today within Europe, and the number of airlines and how many aeroplanes each airline has, despite the fact that they have got a good train system, good road infrastructures, no borders between the country, yet all the airports are busy and they're flying. America, domestic, they've done the same thing. International is a different issue, but domestic, they've done that approach, and it's working for them. We caught between the two. We seem to have open skies, half open skies, quarter open skies, sometimes open skies but close to some airlines. Some airports don't allow the low cost to come into their airports. We got everything on the menu is there. And when you got one cook cooking everything in the kitchen, the food will be messy.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. Then you've got another part of it. And I said this last time we met in one other conference, that ironically you find that the Smaller countries have bigger airlines, and the bigger countries have got the smaller airlines.
Yeah.
The reason, because they're blocking out opportunities for growth, opportunities for employment, opportunities for a good economy. Africa, everybody believes that the future for aviation, because it hasn't got a lot of airlines, vast area, not easy to travel unless by air. Everybody says the airfare is very high. A good recipe for setting an airline. But then when you go in there, you look at, oops, high airport costs, high taxes.
So they are
Currency.
losing out on the potential that can be created by having flights to their countries. I think if there is one reason or one raison d'etre I can pinpoint for Seychelles to have a viable airline was that. How much that airline can add value to the whole country, to the economy of the whole country. Is that the case?
Absolutely, that is the remit of our Seychelles. You know, Seychelles as a country, tourism is its lifeblood. It will not survive without inbound tourism. Now, one of the major things that we've carried out, Abdul, in the last 6-7 months there, more recently, is a review of the network. Because going back to the point I think that many of us have touched on here as airline CEOs, you need good connectivity. You talked about it yourself. You cannot just throw a series of individual flights out there and hope they work. There are very few markets in this world where you have enough demand to commercially be profitable on a point-to-point basis, day in, day out, 52 weeks of the year. So revising a network to create better connectivity where you've got demand both coming into Seychelles as a country, but then beyond that as well, where you have it there as additional top-up to create connecting traffic flows over Seychelles, be it east, west, north, south.
Could have that been achieved without your partnership with Etihad? I mean, the question here, for a small airline, can it survive without partnership?
No. There's two halves to this. The lesser half is the connecting traffic, or the traffic that flows east-west and across Seychelles. It is the inbound tourism, which historically from Europe has been the strength of Seychelles. That, you know, Air Seychelles as an airline will never launch multiple services per day on long haul and take on board that pressure on its balance sheet of investing in an unacceptably large number of long-haul wide-body aircraft. You need a partner to do that. So what you do there then is, using that model, you rely upon and influence your partners to sell inbound traffic that connect onto your own services. You know, for Air Seychelles to walk into many parts of Europe, are we going to be a dominant selling force? No, you should be relying on the strength of the home market brand. You know, they are the well-known. That is in many countries where the national loyalty will obviously lie. So it's about how you develop partnerships, more code-share activities, which connect with your own airline, which then becomes a win-win in generating traffic for that partner in areas of their network where they need it, which also then connects through to an airline like Air Seychelles to bring inbound tourism. That's the model, and that's the way forward.
Guys, do you think that applies to low-cost business model as well? That with partnerships, you are, with partnerships, you have got it's a chairman of an airline. You know,
I thought it was a question for him from someone.
I'm fired.
No,
please help me, Adel.
You know, of course, you know, you have to take advantage of the environment that you work with, and of course, you know, you look at if there are an opportunity to deal with airline. I mean, all of the norms that were supposed to be not there for a low-cost airline, like no GDS, no connecting traffic, no partnership, no frequent flyer. All of these are out of the window, because you know you have to look at what makes sense for your business and where are the opportunities. As long as you make money, You know, you are not over complicated the situation. So I understand where Air Cecil you know come from, and then you need that partnership. You know, I believe at least in our markets where we are, we work as if we want to survive on our own. But wherever there is opportunity, you take it. But if the opportunity is no longer there, you cannot depend on it. But we are different, and for different airline.
Well,
Sorry, Abdul, if you can just
yes,
add to that.
you have to be, our time is up.
Okay, sorry. Just touched on a very relevant point there. We're all different. You know, if you look at certain markets out there with a more low-cost traditional model that work, if you look at something like Seychelles, a low-cost model flying into Seychelles is not what a guest flying to the Seychelles
Yes.
wants. So I think that's exactly right. We're all different.
Very clear. Ladies and gentlemen, if I want to take out from this session few things. Number one, the opportunity is there. The billion passengers are going to happen within the next 4 years. But in order for the airlines to be able to, and for the infrastructure, because you have a business as well, and for you, the welfare of the airline is the welfare of your business. In order for the airlines to be able to capture that potential, they need to address or face up to the challenge of infrastructure, the challenge of protectionism, and the issue of partnership, and the issue of taxation. So with these, I would like to ask you to join me to thank the panel for an excellent session.